Hey, welcome back to the fourth and final installment of this covered patio build. Yay, last one. I'm Chad with Just Add Wood, and I'm going to walk you through part 4. If you'd like to see how we arrived at this point, please see the prior 3 videos on how we got here. Today's video is the last one, and I'm going to show you that we've got the roof in place. We've got the ceiling joists marked with blue tape where all the electrical boxes need to go. I'm going to hang canless LED lights and 3 ceiling fans. And in order to do so, I'm going to show you what I've done here on the inside. And I've replaced what was just 2 single switches with a single switch and a double stack. So these 2 switches, the top switch is going to be for the lights, the canless LED lights, and the bottom switch is going to be for the ceiling fans. In order to do that, I have fished some extra wires through the wall. I fished the wires from the existing switches that I modified to this carriage light box all the way up to the first joist, and they come out into the ceiling there. I've labeled them so we can see what's going on here. We have 2 switch legs. One switch leg is going to be tied to the lights. The other switch leg is going to be tied to the fans. And then the hot is going to be tied to the receptacles. The receptacles will be always hot. I know I said in an earlier video I was going to do it a different way, but we decided to wire the fans and the lights separately and just leave the outlet hot all the time and install one of the smart outlets that'll work with the home network. One of the neat things about these canless lights you're about to see me install, and I'll get into the rest of the features later, is you can just run your wires wherever you like. You don't need to worry about cans and mounting brackets and centering them between joists and the things you had to do for the old can lights. These just fit almost anywhere. All right, we've gotten this far with the exception of tying in the switch wires for the fan and the lights. I've got all the electrical wires run and in place where I want to put the can lights and the fans on. And then over here, I'm going to go ahead and start sanding the columns and the beams. The idea is going to be to stain the columns and go ahead and stain the beams so all the structural members of the patio are stained, and then when we put on our beadboard ceiling, it'll be a nice painted color and it'll butt up against the stained framing members. So that's the idea anyway. So I'm just going to hit it with a little 220 and a palm sander and get it roughed up and ready for stain. And for all of the paint and stain applications, I'm just using this Gray Coat plug-in airless sprayer and over-the-counter Home Depot Behr products. Tradition tells us we're supposed to paint a porch ceiling blue, so here I am painting the ply bead panels blue. Just lean them up against the ladder there in the yard, got all the panels sprayed, and for the columns and the beams, I cleaned the gun out and used a fence stain that was left in the house when we purchased it that matches the fence. As far as using a gun versus using a brush, I love the gun. It's easy. It produces a very consistent finish. The cleanup is a nightmare, however. And let's talk about gutters. This is the only part of the project that I did hire out. There was no way for me to DIY 30 foot of seamless gutters. So I priced a few contractors out, chose one that I thought would do the best job, and they were in and out in just a couple hours. All of the ceiling surfaces are getting ply bead treatment, including along the eaves there behind the gutters. I had some leftover half sheets of ply bead from a previous wainscoting project, so I just cut them down into strips to be used along the eaves. Now I know longer pieces would be less seams and would look a little nicer, but I had these left over and wanted to use them up, and all of my seams, including the ceiling, is going to be covered with lattice strips. Just a reminder to be careful on ladders, everyone. That piece of wood went down faster than a Democratic bill with a Republican Congress. Luckily, nobody was hurt. It did, however, hurt right in the feels when I dropped my brand new nail gun, and my son happened to witness it and make fun of me for it.
How's it going?
Yeah, same old, same old.
Nice.
How was school?
Same.
Good.
Busy.
New
You
guy.
dropped something. Be careful.
And then there was that time where I got in a hurry and I didn't measure twice. So, you know what happened.
Are you kidding me? How did that happen? Bummer. That sucks.
I did add pivotable LED lights above the grill area on the side of the patio. I used a Diablo hole saw for all of the holes for the ceiling fan boxes and the LED lights. I'll put a link in the description for them. I thought they did a fantastic job, made the holes real easy. Please look closely and note that this first piece of ply bead is being held up by a 2x4, and all the subsequent pieces of ply bead are being held up with a panel lift. I cannot recommend a panel lift enough. If you have to lift big sheet goods over your head, rent a panel lift. Best decision I made in this whole project. And speaking of panels, all of the panels are being held up with a construction adhesive and 15 gauge nails from a Ryobi battery nailer. I would also recommend that if you're considering ply bead instead of real beadboard, is to either buy your materials in a real supply house, a real lumber yard, or choose your materials extremely carefully at one of the big box stores. This is some of the crummiest produced ply bead I've ever seen. The tongue and grooves are all jacked up. The surface is extremely rough, and it took a ton of paint to get it covered. So just choose your materials wisely or pay a little more for better materials from a real supply house. So when your scraps don't have the right tongue or groove, because this is plyboard and under each piece has a tongue and a groove, one on each end, and I was trying to use leftover cutoffs to fill in the blanks, and unfortunately they don't match. So what I've done here is I've cut the tongue off this side. I'm going to flip this board over, and I'm going to route a new groove on the back side. I used an 18-volt Ryobi trim router for this project, and all I did was use a 1/2-inch bit and a block of wood and some C-clamps attached to the base plate to create an edge guide. Now, we have this awesome tongue where the groove used to be. Okay, we've got all the ceiling panels in place, all the ply beads in, all the eaves are done, the holes are cut for the electrical, for the lights, and for the fans, and we can call it done with the exception of some of these gaps, which I'm going to cover with some lattice strips. And while I'm waiting on the lattice strips to get back in stock, I'm going to go ahead and install these canless LED lights that you see in the corner of the video there. This is a really neat product. I got it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. They come with variable light output, so you can change the Kelvin or the temperature or the color of the lights. We want a really warm light, so we can choose that color and it doesn't look very LED-ish. They're very, very thin, so if you're installing this in a 1/2-inch plywood or a 1/2-inch drywall, they'll go right on top of a joist, so you don't have to worry about the old cans. They come with these push-on connectors, so there's no connectivity issues. You just skin the wire, push it into the hole, and it's good to go. As far as the installation goes, all you need is that box, you need the light itself, you need a pair of wire strippers, and you're good to go. Select your color temperature, and then open up the box and punch out one of the access holes. I can't tell you how many wires I forgot to push through the box before connecting the wires to the push-on connectors. Then you're going to strip the outer sheathing off of the wires. Then you're going to separate the individual wires, throw away any paper that might be on your copper wire, and then strip the individual ends of the wires. wires. Always make sure your power is off before doing this, of course. Then thread the wires into the box before pushing them onto the color-coded push-on connectors. White to white, black to black, green to copper. Once all the power connections are made, then you connect this barrel connector to the light itself. You put the light box into the recess in the ceiling, and then you snap the wafer light in place using the 2 tabs on the side. Really doesn't get much easier than this. And oh, that sweet, sweet satisfaction of tearing off the new plastic. Now that I'm done helping myself install all of the canless LED lights, hey, what are you gonna do? It's hard to find good help these days. It's time for a little touch-up paint. Pro tip here, I'm only having to do touch-up paint because I painted most of the pieces while they were laying on the ground. So it was much easier to do than to paint them entirely while they're over my head. Just like all the other ceiling panels, lattice strip is no exception, and they got painted while they were easy to reach on the ground. And the moment we've all been waiting on, or at least I have. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you a covered patio. Due to turning it into a wedding venue for an unexpected wedding, that provided the final push to get this long overdue project finished. So we got it all wrapped up with the exception of ceiling fans. As you can see here, the down rods were on back order, so there was nothing I could do there until the down rods came in. They have since been installed, but this is what it looked like upon completion. We did some rental chairs, heaters, and some other things to get it ready for a quick wedding. And once that took place, then we decommissioned it as a wedding venue and put it back together as a friendly, comfortable back patio. And I'll show you that here in just a moment. You can see here also we added a side patio space for the barbecue grills with some LED lighting above it. We added the canless LED lights. We added the 3 ceiling fans. We also added party lights, string lights tied into the outlets that replaced the original carriage light. We plugged in a smart outlet to be able to control the party lights via the home network. Added a little bit of patio furniture and a couple of signs, and we can call this project done.
Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched all these episodes, if you'd like to see any of the prior episodes, please look at the links at the end and you can see how we got to this point here. It was a long project, but it was a very rewarding project. If you're thinking of tackling something like this, please consult engineers and architects and local county code offices and experts as needed for your skill level. Otherwise, I can endorse putting a covered patio onto a house. It's turned into a very neat living space that we're able to use pretty much any season of the year. Thanks for watching. Look forward to showing you the next one. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment and all that good stuff. Thanks.